So let's talk UK-Israeli relations. Where's the UK at these days? So after 12 years of a supposedly right-wing Conservative government, the UK has the highest inflation rates in generations, has the highest tax rates in generations, still recovering from 2 years of COVID lockdowns. It's been 6 years since it left Brexit, and there's been very few benefits or reforms that have been pushed through that were available post-Brexit. So I mean, I think it's fair to say the UK is not in great shape. Why is Israel a potentially good fit in terms of trade and in terms of their economies? So I think both countries are or have been attempting to build the next Silicon Valley in their countries with differing levels of success. I think Israel has done very well, especially during like the 2010s when Silicon Valley was just dominating the tech space to a ridiculous extent. And what Israel did well was it built smaller companies that complemented those big tech companies in Silicon Valley, and often those big tech companies acquired those small companies. An example is Waze, traffic monitoring that Google bought to use with Google Maps. And Israel's really focused on education and incentivizing the studying of science and tech degrees rather than, say, humanities degrees or politics, philosophy and economics, which pretty much all the UK Conservative politicians seem to study at Oxford and Cambridge. Anyway, I digress. So what was I saying? I was saying Israel has been doing consistently well for a small country in terms of laying these foundations of being a Silicon Valley-like hub. And I think there are a few things that the UK could learn from Israel in that respect. The UK seemed to completely miss out on those first couple of iterations of like software eating the world. It did do well for a few years with like fintech companies and building like challenger banks to those banks that have been around for decades, centuries. Banks like Monzo and Revolut and stuff. But they seem to have been sucked into the woke diversity vortex and don't seem to be innovating anymore. So even that kind of bright spark seems to have died out over the last few years. Hopefully it'll be reinvigorated. So in terms of the fit, Israel is a small economy, but it's very possible that small Israeli companies could work with, say, challenger banks in the UK, maybe even the incumbent banks, and go to market with like innovative products and shake up the financial services sector in London, in the UK, which desperately needs. And another similarity is that they're both nations or economies operating on the outskirts of the EU without being a member of the EU. Since Brexit, the UK is no longer a member of the EU, and supposedly independent of the EU. And I suppose the final thing is that I did a video on the US-Israeli relations, but I think when the US is failing in global leadership, and when the US is pushing all this cultural nonsense around the world, countries like the UK and Israel really need to stand up and lead for themselves, at least until sanity is restored over in the US. So I think it's important that countries like UK and Israel build their economies and take advantage of opportunities rather than waiting for the US to get its act in order. And so yeah, I think Israel is in very good shape. UK unfortunately isn't, but I think there are a lot of opportunities for them to work together for both of their benefits, and it's promising to see some high-profile Israeli politicians go over to visit the UK this week. I think Netanyahu's, the Prime Minister of Israel, is going to the UK later this week, and you just got to hope that the focus is on the future, the focus is on trade, investment, trying to rebuild Britain's battered economy and financial services sector, and the UK doesn't fall into this trap of wanting to lecture Israel on security matters and constitutional reforms and all this nonsense that the US seems to be obsessed with trying to make a massive issue of. So yeah, promise, but if anything that I've learned over the last 12-13 years of following UK politics is that there are a lot of words, there's a lot of spin, but very little seems to happen in the long term to really charge up and get the British economy moving again. So we'll see.